Hey, hey, hey. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Soul Sis Podcast with Sabrina Albert, my amazing friend. And I'm going to cook to my internet. Hold on one second. She is the founder of Stonecatchers Counseling as well as R&B Counseling, which is a non-for-profit serving minorities and immigrants, low income, the underserved, right? So she is the superhero for the underserved community. She is an advocate, big time advocate, and mental health expert. So we are excited to have her here today. She's going to be our featured speaker for today with kicking off International Women's History Month. And we all came a long way with the Women's History Month. So welcome, Sabrina.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We are so excited to learn from you, to hear more from you, and I never get tired of hearing you. So what I am going to do, let me see. I was in the process of, what was I doing? Carlotta's also here joining us. However, Dee had some things going on. She couldn't, she's tied up with some other stuff, so she couldn't join us today. But I'm excited to kick off the conversation today. Sabrina, we want to introduce you and have you share a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about your business, when it got started, all that good stuff.
Definitely. I am happy to share. So thank you again for having me. Like Pawnee said, I'm the founder and clinical director at both Stonecatchers Counseling and R&B Counseling. So Stonecatchers Counseling was opened about 5.5 years ago when we were really trying to bring mental health to colored communities, reducing the stigma and welcoming mental health, and also reaching out to the currently and formerly incarcerated to make sure that everybody was able to access services and have another chance at life. Then I was so inspired by you, Pawnee, about really having a practice dedicated towards serving not just members of the BIPOC community, but refugees, people who had to flee their country out of safety and everything they had to do to be able to save their lives and to come here to the US. And what was happening, we saw with a lot of refugees, there were language barriers that didn't allow them to be able to access services. There were insurance issues, that needing a place that needed to speak Arabic and take Medicaid, or needed to speak Creole and take Medicaid. And a lot of times people could find one or the other. And we wanted to really create a home that allowed a safe space for everyone to be able to access care. So that's when we opened R&B Counseling, which stands for Refugee and BIPOC, about 3.5 years ago.
I love that. And Sabrina, some people don't even know the difference between a refugee and immigrants. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. That is, and actually, yeah, absolutely. I learned a lot from you, actually, Pawn, in that area too. So I have to admit that for a long time, I too was also ignorant of the difference, and really realizing that immigrants may come to the U.S., they want a better life, but where their home country is also safe. They're just choosing another route, another place, maybe more opportunities, as opposed to a refugee who may be fleeing war, who may be fleeing place where there's just so much violence or food insecurities or poverty, everything, where their life literally depends on coming here, right? And that is a huge difference in the experience of coming here to the U.S.
Absolutely. So tell me, Sabrina, what got you interested in starting your own business? Coming from a corporate career or, wherever you were working at, and hey, I need to just get off on my own. What was that push and what prompted you to start your own business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had always worked in the field of social services, even while I would do other stuff like working in corporate sales, just because there was such little money in social services, right? Social workers are so underpaid. It was very hard to make a living in that area. When I had my son, I went into private practice, which for old school social workers is kind of like the biggest sellout move, because like old school social workers, we're in the prisons, we're in the homeless shelters, like we are with the people. So private practice was always this like very bougie thing that you would kind of get made fun of if you are supposedly a real social worker and going into the field. At that time, I was like, well, I want to be able to care for my son and not have to work so much. And when I was interviewing at places, I was just horrified by how few places took Medicaid. And I was thinking, like, what is happening here? How is every place I've interviewed at, no one is taking Medicaid? I mean, and it was even people of color who were therapists who were like, no, you have to have Blue Cross Blue Shield, PPO, this. And I was like, whoa, I don't know what's happening here, but it sounds like we're discriminating against our own people, because we know that poverty disproportionately impacts communities of color. So if you go into a practice and you say, I'm going to accept Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO or Aetna PPO, or anything, you are completely excluding refugees, people who have just come here, people who have been raised in poverty, people who may not be able to access jobs due to racism and sexism, everything else like that. And that was just not a system that I wanted to be a part of. And when I could not find a practice that was like that, the motivation was there. Well, I just need to build it, right? I just need to follow Gandhi, be the change that you want to see. And that is how Stonecatchers was built.
I love that. So was it like an overnight thing? Like you had thought about it for some time? Like what was the process like?
Yeah. So again, I was inspired by you, Pawnee, seeing like all the work that you had done, you know, opening a business, being a refugee yourself. So I've always been very inspired by what you have been able to create, multiple businesses throughout your entire career, right? And really turning pain into purpose, right? So between watching that, being able to see how many insurance companies were discriminating, or practices were discriminating against our people who are on Medicaid, also working in the hospital, I would, you know, people would come into the emergency department. I was the person that did their evaluation. If they were suicidal, homicidal, psychotic, if they were released, we would give them a list of places to call. And many of our clients are on Medicaid. And then the next time I would come in and get called into the emergency department, I'd be evaluating the same person I just evaluated yesterday or the day before. I'm like, what happened? I thought we had the service. It was like, I couldn't get it. All the numbers you gave me with the Medicaid line, they have 8 to 10 months wait list. They have this, or they claim to take Medicaid and they don't. So really our hospital emergency departments are becoming a rotating door for people who are just not able to access services upon discharge. So that was a huge motivation too, because I've been working there for so long. I mean, right, it'll be 10 years in August or in December that I'm still at the hospital too, because, you know, that hits very close home to me, where I really want to know what's still happening in the community. And we can forget that if we're not, you know, when we're doing more administrative work. So it's always a reminder. And that's when I was like, something's got to happen here. You know what I mean? Like, there needs to be a place that not just takes Medicaid, that has people of color, that has people who are multilingual and things along those lines. And the more that I researched and I watched you and I thought about my career path, like prior to that, and I was like, let's just do it. But I mean, a lot of it was you, Pawn, like having, you know, there's a lot of things that your business does that a lot of places don't. Like people will be like, okay, I can get a website, but where am I going to get my logo? Where am I going to get my promo video? Where am I going to, like, all the letterhead, like, right? You had packages, and then it seemed like, oh, I can do this because like I do one thing and I get all of it, instead of being like so overwhelmed to find 50 different companies to do everything. So, right. Oh, wow. So you kind of eliminated the excuses. You're like, well, you can't really say that. You're not doing it when I'm telling you.
Didn't we launch your marketing like 2 weeks before your grand opening, because you realized you didn't have marketing?
Yes. I was like, okay, well, I was focused so much about getting in the insurance channels and making sure that we could bill and doing that. I was like, wait a minute, we actually need a phone number here at the Remember that whole phone line disaster where like I got a virtual number and then they gave that number away, and it was on all of our marketing material that you had made. We had thousands of dollars printing it just on our launch. It'd be like, oh my God, we have to change our phone number and change all of our marketing material.
And I was like, Sabrina, you're opening in 2 weeks. I gotta finish all this in 2 weeks.
But girl, we made it happen. And you know, our companies right now are bringing in over $2 million a year.
And you were one of my first clients. Yeah. And now you're doing $2 million a year. Amazing. Well, Carlotta's on with us now, so she's nice and settled in. Carlotta, how are you? We can't. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Thank you. I said, it's nice to
You
hear I'm not the only one that forgets the most important part, like a phone number, because Laura was doing the website. And like, so are you ready to move forward? I'm like, yes, I am. And we were all
Wait,
excited.
how about Carlotta comes to me with her vision of doing this limousine service, and within the day I delivered her whole marketing stuff plan. Like, here you go, your company's ready to go.
Sabrina, she said, you've been talking about this for like a couple years now. She said, are you ready to move? I said, yeah. Remember we talked about the name and you coached me through that process? I said, I really think I'm going to do She Moves. And she was like, is she ready to move? Yes, I am.
That's a great name too. She Moves. That's brilliant.
She Moves.
The whole thing looks amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Laura, for your insight and strategic insight, because she just has to see things a certain way. But the wilder part was like, she website. I said, well, I need a 3-panel brochure so I can do this, 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 and that. And then she was like, okay, so what's the phone number? I'm like, oh, the phone number. A second. And then she was like, and what's the address? And I was like, you think of. And I was like, okay, if the clients come and they ask for this and they ask for that, and everything had honestly perfectly aligned to the point where I had no other choice but to move forward. It was just the little things. What? Like, oh, I didn't realize you were going to do the website like immediately. But in her eyes, it was like that day, because she was like, you got to have this and that together. And it took me time to get it together, but I knew what I wanted to do. And because I'm a perfectionist, I wanted to do things in a certain way, but I respect the fact that she has a certain eye. She can see things and she can listen and pay attention. It was the detail to paying attention that I really appreciated the most. So I get it, especially when you need to do marketing. That's the last thing I think about. I'm just word of mouth. So.
Right.
Oh my goodness. It's so crazy. And yeah, because she had been sitting on it. I'm like, okay, she gotta move now. Wait. Oh, look at Robin. Hey, Robin, my childhood friend. Yes, Laura empowers. I will be empowering anyone who comes in my path. And then tell Sabrina about the lady we had met for dinner.
Oh, yeah. So what happens is Laura's like, okay, we're going to put this out there. So she's on the marketing side. I'm like, okay, whatever you think we should do. So now she's done the website. We figure out the phone number. I say, hey, I have a toll-free number for King's Clothing, but it comes with 2 and I only use 1. So now we got the number down pat. So I've been had the number, but I didn't access it. So she goes and, she's the content creator that she is. She goes and throws out the name out there and throws out what we're doing. And then I was like, well, I want to be part of it more than like a business coach. I think at this point you got to graduate to a different title. She was like, what do you mean? I said, like, can you be the president or something? She was like, sure, I'll be the president. So she's like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and put my first post out there. I said, well, Lord, people were quickly, so I got to finalize the internal structure. She's like, Carlotta, just go for it. So with that being said, there was a lady that apparently with her story about, transitioning and caring for her late husband, and with that whole presentation that she put out there, when initially everything happened, there was somebody who connected to the story because they had lost a loved one, and it touched their heart. And of course, they were in transportation for X amount of years. And she was like, hey, y'all doing transportation? I want to support you all. I know drivers, I know vehicles, I know contacts, I know this, I know that. Let's connect. She drove from I don't know what distance, far away, connected with us. So of course, I facilitated that, and I said, Lord, she's connecting because she saw your story. I know you and I both have busy schedules. We got to connect with her because she's saying she can connect us with transportation and so on and so forth. And she took the time to drive up, meet us. Yeah. We had dinner together. Everything was like really impromptu, but I'm the kind of person, like, when things perfectly align to the point where you just can't walk away from it, you have to move forward with it. And she was actually our first client. So she actually did just refer us to someone who needed transportation. We were able to execute that, but she also met with us and talked about us, the possibility of doing other contracts, not just transportation in general. So she was just touched by Laura's story. And I told her, I was like, hey, I don't care what nobody said to you. If you feel it, to put it up, and that's your conviction, do so. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody else can tell a story like you can about any part of our lives. So it was one of her
Well,
followers
yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
and then, you get those, and then you get mostly family that end up unfollowing you because you're sharing too much, or, oh, I pause your mama's post. I don't follow her anymore because she's on there talking about, personal stuff or doing too much or whatever they're saying. Well, you know what? Me doing too much is saving lives. So
Right.
I'm going to continue to do too much, because me opening my voice and my mouth and sharing my experience just saved that lady's life. I had people messaging me, inboxing me. I was ready to commit suicide. I had my curtains drawn. I was sitting in the dark. Then I got up and saw your post, and I decided not to.
That's right.
Meanwhile, I got family members. I unfollowed your mom because I don't like all her posts. She be posting too much. So, it's not for you, whatever I post. But those are the kind of things that I think, as we talk about today, talking about being a business owner and putting yourself out there and having a business and trying to manage it all. Those are some of the challenges. And so I wanted to ask you, Sabrina, like, you've been open for now, what, 5 years?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
This year will be 5 years.
Oh yeah, we hit 5 years. We're going on 5.5 now. Our next
Oh
one will
my
be 6.
goodness.
Yep.
So this will be the 6th year.
Yep. Come September.
Oh, wow. Dang, that came on so fast. So tell me, what was it like to get started, right? What are some of the things for those listeners who are thinking about starting their business? Like, what was it like for you, and what piece of advice can you tell them when they are in the starting up phase?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of times it's going to really have to be the starting off age, just tapping into your courage, right? Because those fear parts are going to come out and tell you, like, don't do this. This is a mistake. You may fail. Like, and all those voices that people have told us our entire lives, particularly as women, where people have undermined our ability to be business owners. They have told us that we should just be at home doing this, or, having a family or having kids. And that's what our role is, because there's so much sexism for women going into business, because they're like, oh no, I don't think it's for you. But then if you're a man, everyone's sitting there rooting you on because apparently you're not following the plan if you're a woman.
Exactly.
Exactly. So really it's about first shutting those voices down, right? And tapping into your own courage about who you are as a person to be able to stay in it. And then really it's just about really talking through it, because there's going to be so much pain and suffering and things that you didn't think of, that you wish you had known, or, just like us losing our phone number on that day of our launch day. And remember, Pawn, you had to go in and entertain our guests that were there, because I was frantically trying to get a phone number, right? And like during those times, you got to remind yourself, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Like, it's going to happen. And there's going to be hiccups there. And you're going to, like, the one thing I think you got to really remember during that time is it's going to take time, right? Because a lot of times we want things right in that minute, and we're like, oh, if I'm not making a certain amount of money, I'm not going to be able to pay rent. I'm not, right? So we just have to just continue to put one foot in front of the other. Absolutely. And just remember that things will take time, and really just to keep talking about the struggles and whatever you're going through, to make sure you have supportive people in your corner, like you, non-haters, right? To be able to really encourage you and cheer you on.
That is so right. So I wanted to go back to, let me see. Oh, Carlotta's back. Okay. So I wanted to point out some of the messages we got from the audience. Hi, Lawrence. Lawrence said, unfortunately, for most people, family will never support you, which is true. There's a funny story behind that. I was on another podcast the other night, and one of the questions I was asked was, what about your family members? Aren't you, kind of scared? Like, my next book is a tell-all book, like kind of like really, really like what I've been through, stuff I've never even mentioned to. And some of my family members don't even know some of the stuff that's going to be in my book. And so she asked, well, how do you think they're going to take it? And I was like, oh, they won't read my book. I was like, family's usually the last people to support or read your stuff. I said, I'm not worried about them seeing it. So you're right. Unfortunately, that is true. So that was my answer. And Robin says, that's right. Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely, Robin. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So having the grit, right, to continue to keep going. And it does truly take courage, especially when your back's against the wall and you're like, okay, am I really supposed to be doing this? and like all odds are against you. Now, I want to ask, what was like your aha moment, like your proudest moment that maybe a client or somebody like he reminded you like, hey, I'm on the right path. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So what was some of those moments for you?
Yeah, you know, that moment, like those moments still happen. I actually get very emotional even thinking about it, because when clients call and like people will break down crying when they come to our office because they've always had to go to like, you know, rundown facilities or places where there's 100 people in the waiting room. They're sitting there for 3 hours because that's the way that our country treats the poor. And if someone has Medicaid, it's assumed that they should just have terrible services and they should be expected to wait long hours and things like that. I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to be. You should be able to walk into a beautiful facility. You should be welcomed and you should be treated just like someone who has Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO, right? So when people, I mean, mothers especially break down crying when they call, when I'm like, they're like, I have Medicaid, and they say it like very quietly because they're so used to getting rejected and someone saying, oh, we don't take that plan. We don't take that plan. And like, they'll break down crying and be like, I can't believe you take this. Thank you. Or I'll say, when they say, oh, I have Blue Cross Medicaid, I'm like, that's wonderful. And like, another breakdown crying. I've never heard anyone say that my insurance is wonderful, right? Because like there's all these messages of rejection. You're not good enough and you don't deserve access to quality care. So every time somebody is welcomed in the space and is so grateful for that, it's a reminder like this is why we do what we do, right? Because in DuPage County, in a private practice setting, it is very hard to find a Medicaid provider.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Carlota, welcome back.
Yes, I'm trying to podcast and my kids are all calling me at the same time. Like, y'all know 4 to 5, it's a dedicated mommy time, but watch for that. Of course, you know, previously, you know, I had Blue Cross Blue Shield and I was able to go wherever I was going for medical care and whatnot. And of course, you know, I can't connect to native, you know, to being from another country, but I can say that prior to my former husband getting insurance, you know, because we had whatever the medical card was when you're pregnant and they give it to you automatically. When I came to Chicago, and the care I got at that point in comparison to when he had Blue Cross Blue Shield. And of course, when that no longer was existence, because, you know, we're no longer married, it was like, it's a change, you know, and I just never understood why, because medical care should still be medical care. And, you know, I think it's something that we should get. It's just like, I get it with the whole medical card versus, you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield. And it's just like, there's a stigma with certain things. So I appreciate you doing that for the community. So it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So for some of our listeners now, like, are you taking on new clients?
Yes, we are taking clients. We always prioritize Medicaid clients over commercial clients though. So when we have a wait list, the commercial clients are the people that we refer out and the Medicaid clients are the ones that we keep. So that is really, really important to us. And especially if there's a language that like Arabic, Creole, Urdu, anything else like that that's very hard to access, always a priority, like on top. So for sure.
You're doing an amazing thing. And I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
So every sweat, every stress, every drip of tears that you have shed over and I'm sure there's plenty because those are growing pains. I just want you to know that you are a game changer for the community and a fearless leader. And, you know, you have all of our back. Look, you ladies are speaking. Come on, Danielle. Hey, girl. Come on in. You want to join us? I'll send you the link. You can join the conversation. You know, you're an entrepreneur too. And I'm proud of you for what you just did. And I can't wait to catch up. Yes. So, yes. So tell us a little bit about like what's going on now and, you know, any of the challenges that you may be facing now or success that you could be facing right now.
Yeah. So we're actually in a huge crisis right now. So Medicaid constantly tries to shut down Medicaid practices, especially if it's a private practice setting. Unfortunately, in the United States, Medicaid only works when you can't use it, right? That's why there's so many limitations in accessing services. So being able to go to a doctor for a physical once a year, or in the emergency department when you're sick, 1 or 2 times a year, is different from accessing mental health care where you're going to see your therapist every week or twice a week. Then it becomes a huge issue. Like, no way, we don't want to pay this, right? We have been slammed with never-ending audits from Medicaid for the past 3.5 years. I have not one day in the past 3.5 years not been under an audit. They drain our funds with legal fees, constantly fighting bogus audits, criticizing every documentation, every little detail they will say, like, they don't like, or this note was too similar to the other one, this is cloning, or every little detail, and they'll invalidate the entire session. We've been dealing with this for quite a long time. Most recently, Meridian Medicaid just did an audit. Wasn't a big one, wasn't even on our radar. 135 records total, not a big deal at all. We got the bill Wednesday of last week, and they're asking for $413,000 back. How would that number come from only 135 records? It's because they use a totally horrible audit methodology called statistical extrapolation, where what they do is they sample a very small number of charts. They calculate an error rate, and then they apply that error rate to every session that you have ever billed in the entire time that you've been open, which is what they call the universe. So that's how they took this error rate and applied it from our day one to every single claim. So of the 3,621 records that they are charging us for, they only reviewed 135 records. Like, this should be totally illegal to ask for almost $500,000 of records that you have not reviewed.
Even looked at.
You have not even looked at, you have not even seen, we have not produced, nothing, right? These are all power dynamics that have been given to big corporations. Like Meridian is run by Centene, right? Which is a big organization that manages a bunch of other companies. And they just come after you to just claw back the money. They know what they're doing when they're asking for $413,000 back. Like, you are trying to bankrupt practices. You do not want this practice to exist. I had never even heard of statistical extrapolation until Wednesday of last week, ever in my entire life. And I'm sitting here researching this, like, what the heck is this? And everything I'm saying is like, this is a way for insurance companies to be able to get a larger amount of money back while only reviewing a small sample. I mean, I just don't understand, because that would be like saying, okay, we found you guilty of robbing 2 banks, so therefore we're going to hold you accountable for robbing every bank in the United States for the past 5 years. Like, that would never fly in any other system. So why should it be flying here?
Wow. Danielle said same in dentistry. They do that.
Wow. Danielle, I would love to talk to you more about this, because I literally
Danielle has a medical billing practice. She may be a really good resource for you. So she does have a medical billing practice, and she did take that leap of faith, I believe, and is off on her own now as well. So congratulations on that. So what's next then? What can we do about this?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get on news stations, reporters, whatever it is, to be able to bring this to light, right? Because these are targeted efforts. It's very calculated to shut down Medicaid practices, right? They want Medicaid clients to go to community mental health centers and other places where they can reimburse lower rates and things along those lines. So it seems very calculated. And if they are to continue doing this, they're going to shut down every Medicaid practice all around the state. And the other problem is that this is why a lot of providers don't take Medicaid. So I do speaking events all the time trying to motivate providers to take Medicaid. That way we are practicing and promoting just and equitable systems of care and not oppressive systems.
Right.
It's very hard. It's a very hard sell right now, though. Like, being in the situation of, $500,000. I mean, that we have multiple companies. We've saved a lot of money, but that's enough to bankrupt one of our companies to do that, right? And we're going to be drowning in legal fees trying to fight this and appeal this and to take this to the top. But we need help from the community. We need reporters. We need journalists. We need news stations to say, this is what these insurance companies are doing to shut down practices, right? To deny care to people who are very much in need. And a lot of times people don't care unless they feel like, oh, well, I have Blue Cross PPO, so it doesn't affect me. It absolutely affects you. When people in the community can't get care, what happens, right? We know that mental health care is serious. And when people are struggling, they can't get the care. Anyone who doesn't want to do anything about it should be ready to accept the consequences of that, because that is a societal problem that impacts everyone.
It is. It is, because if we have a huge mental health crisis, everything else, you know, wow. Carlotta.
Yes.
How you feeling today?
Feeling good. Like it's really good. It's you know, sometimes you don't think, going right back to what I initially said about the Blue Cross Blue Shield, I didn't know the dynamics of my household was going to change. You know, I didn't see the foreseeable future, as they say. So it's true when you talk about being aware of like insurance and things of that nature, because you know, I didn't think I was going to go from having Blue Cross Blue Shield, a great plan, to not having insurance at all, you know, or sometimes we're going back to the topic of being self-employed. You know, when you have work in the company and it's a smaller amount of revenue and it's not enough to pay, you know, you have to pay a certain percentage for your staff versus, you know, so those things are important to know, because some people think, okay, I had Blue Cross Blue Shield and I didn't have Medicaid. So, you know, I wouldn't connect to that until my life completely changes. And now it's like, that's probably all I can have for my children and myself, because dad no longer even has that insurance. So with all that being said, you know, it's important to understand that, because most of us don't connect to it, especially when you have insurance like Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it doesn't affect me, but like you mentioned earlier, yeah, it does. If it's, you know, if it's a community crisis, then it should be.
They don't have Blue Cross Blue Shield, you know what I'm saying? So it's true. You don't consider those things, but it affects directly as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey, Miss Carlotta. What are you up to now these days? And hey, speaking of Miss New York fashion designer, I made this because I was trying to find New York, LA, Chicago featured designer over here. Look, inspired by her. Look, I made this outfit because I'm like, I don't got nothing purple. So I took it's just a long wrap and I like wrapped it around. It's just a long wrap. Look.
That looks amazing.
Is it? It's just basically, look, see?
I love it.
I just wrapped it here and then wrapped it tight in here and then threw it up here like a tie. Because you know it's
love.
We should have known to do that. She got wild dolls with whole garments and I'm like, wait, you designed their outfits too? I mean, you put their makeup on, you do their hair.
And then I threw this in here. I'm like, oh, it can look like a tie.
It looks nice. I love it. I love it.
I'm like, you know, inspired by my fashionista friend.
Aw. So my entrepreneurial journey, I believe it's, you know, it's really coming to flourish and it's unfolding in a very unique way. You know, there's a lot of times I feel like I'm this 15, 13-year-old little girl. She sit in the room and watch my mom sew, and she used to have me select fabric, and it just brings me back to that. So, you know, a lot of times your family does things out of a need. So culturally, you know, my family's from Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, and fabric and watching my, you know, my family, my relatives crochet and do things with their hands all the time. The best thing I could do was type or play on my keyboard with my hands. That was the most creative way I could be. But, you know, the other thing was I used to write. So those were the things that I connected to and gravitated to. And being almost 50, you know, having almost 3 adult kids, it's like now I've invested in the things that I can do, the things that make me excited, you know, and fashion really excites me. You know, some people say that's your passion, your ministry, whatever, it's interchangeable. It's just, it describes who I am on the inside. You know, I like to be colorful. I like to be unique. You know, I like to be creative. So for me, you know, my journey of fashion specifically has just allowed me to represent myself. There's no reflection of anybody else besides my mother, you know, as it pertains to who I am. So I'm excited about that. You know, I may have a degree in Microsoft and I do a lot of technology and transportation things. I just love the fact that fashion represents me internally and it manifests on the outside. So, I'm excited about that. I'm definitely excited about the fact that I'm able to touch different women's lives specifically that impact children. So when the mission in my mind was set to like touch other women, by the way they look or by the way they feel about themselves, what was not told was that I internally was dealing with my own insecurities. I had started at size 3 when I got married. And then, I'm sitting here between the 8 and the 10. And that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of sizes going up. And most people be like, well, girl, you a size 8. You would have had 5, 6 kids. But that was a big difference for me when you have to change your whole wardrobe. You don't fit in under your clothes. You know what I'm saying? That internally for me did something. My body changed.
Right.
So I love the fact that I can connect with all size, shapes, color, races, religion of people, and we connect as one thing, and it's other women that just want to have clothes on, and we do that every day, but it's meaningful when you're intentional about the colors or the shapes and the sizes of how you wear things. So to me, that's really impressive that fashion did that for me, because I started styling men in 1998. I was in high school. And then, and then just to think full circle, I had, 4 boys, 1 girl. I had to dress the kids up for church because I wasn't doing any other church girl. I'd say it all the time. Fashion shows have been the most exciting and meaningful thing. But apart from church, I wasn't going to no events. I wasn't out there at the clubs. I wasn't out there being social. I was just to myself, by myself. When you have that many kids, you don't have time to go nowhere, let alone wash your hair. But so the journey has been just transformative for me.
Yeah.
I do a lot of connecting with other individuals, specifically women, and to see that other women are just like me. Like, Sabrina, I saw you with your son, and I see Laura with her grandkids, foster children, and her children. And to balance all that, it's a delicate balance. It can be a challenge. It can be days it's just like, all you want to do is years away because you got to go see the whole world, and they're going to think you're weak. But at the same time, it's like, it's okay to be human. And I've learned that in this fashion journey, like, it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to not be perfect, because we're perfectly imperfect. So that's about my fashion entrepreneurial journey.
Awesome. And then Sabrina, can you, kind of along that line, what are you seeing, like, I guess from a mental health standpoint, since that is your profession, what correlation have you seen with like women in business and mental health? Because we juggle so much, like children, kids, trying to launch a business, you know what I'm saying? So like, what have you seen in your profession with business owners that are women that have that dynamics going on?
Definitely. So we see a lot of intense like anxiety, particularly related to women having an expectation to be perfect and to be able to do it all. So anytime there may be a slip up of like, oh, I forgot to pick my son up for this game, or I forgot to do this thing for the business, or I forgot to return this call, it turns into like immediately a very extreme, I'm a total failure, right? Like a lot of like lacking like self-compassion, right? Because we've been taught so often that we do need to do everything perfectly. We need to have the house, and we need to take care of the kids. And then we also have to bring in money, and we have to do it all with a smile on our face and look dainty, like, because we are often not allowed to be able to truly express ourselves. So seen a lot of like very intense anxiety, fear, a lot of shame, like consuming, internally, because of like, sometimes we don't know how to give ourselves grace because no one ever taught us to, right? We were just expected to have to do everything and just do it perfectly, right? So it's been about how can we really teach our women business owners to be able to give themselves a break, allow themselves to be able to make a mistake and know that it's okay, and to still be able to hang on to the courage of, I can do this, and one mistake doesn't make me a failure.
Right. And what are some pieces of advice that you can give some of the business owners that are listening to us today?
Yeah. So I read an article when there was this CEO, and she was just doing an amazing job. And she was saying like, you know what? It's okay not to miss one of your kids' games, or you miss this one play, or you miss this. Like, you have a very like involved job that it's like a ton of hours. Like,
Yeah.
maybe not put so much pressure on ourselves that we have to show up here all the time, everything. Like if your house is a mess, let it be a mess. Okay. You can get to it on the weekend instead of I have to clean it up right away. Or like it's okay to order food one night because you don't have the energy to cook or to do that. Like allow yourself an opportunity for takeout or allow yourself a break from the gym, right? So to start implementing breaks and to know like, hey, listen, I can't do it all the time and perfectly, and that's okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Nina says, this is me with my work because I did it, everything myself, and I raised the bar. I don't expect failure, but understand I'm human.
Yep. That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and where do you think that sometimes come from then?
I think there's just a lot of gender stereotypes that we are programmed with from day one, right? So much criticism and so much demands for perfection. And obviously, so much of the criticism I get is actually from other women, right? Like there's so much internalized misogyny, right? That like when we, just like I tell people, like, throughout our lives, we constantly have to do anti-racist work. We have to challenge all these message of race that we are programmed with TV, media, school, everything that we've been treated. We also have to do that when it comes to anti-patriarchy work, right? To challenge those kind of systems that we are programmed with, like from the beginning, right? So like, oh, you're a bad mom because, you were working late tonight. Like, no, I was working late because I'm providing for my family, right? And I'm providing opportunities and because I want to show my kid that women are leaders, right? And they are business owners, right? And really like that voice that is constantly told that a lot of people are programmed with, right? And like a lot of times I've had to disconnect from people with that type of energy because if it's not bringing me up, like you got to go, right? Because that's just not helpful, like in that moment, for sure not.
Wow. Let me see what else.
With that, I think from my insight, almost 50 years, it's a lot of cultural things. My mom was always, well, she was a single parent. I did have a stepfather, but my mom was just still enforcing everything. And it was just like, she was always a perfectionist. So I just think culturally, she instilled certain things. And she never made it public or made it obvious to us as her children if she had failed in some manner. So it's like I always saw her as this perfect individual. And then when I became a mom, a wife, and everything else, I felt like I had to follow a role model. And it was a challenge. Then I realized like, hey, she had failures. I will have failures. And that doesn't make me a failure. It's just, we're human. And Nina just said that, but easy to process mentally. Even at almost 50, it's like Laura always talks about me being superwoman. I can see it in her too. It's just like when you're just simply saying no to people, that is so hard for me. Like, no, I'm appointment. No, I'm not going to go here. No, I can't. Even the kids, like, I'm not going to take you to that meeting. Or just to delegate it to one of my older kids. It's almost like sometimes kids compensated somehow. I'm like, listen, I'm putting a roof over your head. We're cooking these meals. So it's just a simple cultural thing that impacts us, even from a young girl.
Exactly. Just as, we're always going through some stuff, just like I had posted on Friday, right? I got off my work day. Then I had to go pick up Carmelo because he had a stomach ache. He was at a sleepover. But of course, I have my 2 foster kids. And now, of course, I have to take all 3 of them to urgent care. So I'm sitting in there. Fortunately, it wasn't packed. So they were kind of, we were like one of the few people that were there. And they seen that I had 3 kids, which they probably thought they all 3 were mine. And they're like, okay, let's hurry up and get you back there so you can get home with the kids. But it's like people don't see the behind the scenes stuff, right? And right now, look, come here, look. As we speak, is somebody sitting here waiting for something right here? His name is Kai. So he's standing here waiting for something. Look, so, so people don't see the behind the scenes, right? And I got the baby in the room. Hopefully she stays asleep while I'm on this podcast. Got Kai right here. Carmelo went back to his friend's house. So he should be calling soon. I got to go pick him up and figure out what's for dinner. So there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, especially when you have not just one, but multiple kids. In my case, is 7 of us, right? That I had to figure out, okay, what are we eating today, this morning, tonight, like every day, what are we doing? And trying to get 4 kids, 3 to 4 kids out in the morning, figure out who's where, what time to pick up who, but then also juggling the businesses and what meetings do I have? Okay, let me go through my checklist. And I have tried, and I am trying to be more mindful of, okay, if it doesn't get done, then it just doesn't get done. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to get done when it needs to get done. That's kind of where I've been lately, because I have been putting a lot of pressure on myself. But we just have to realize that things will happen in its own timing. And if you can't do everything that's on your list, it's okay. Put it to the next day, or do what you can. And that's enough. You showed up. And that's the most important thing. You showed up. And that's the most important thing. You showed up with all the kids and all. Whenever I get asked to go to like a business meeting or something, I said, oh yeah, I can come. So then meanwhile, I'm like, I got 2. Remember when we went out that one evening with the ladies after we filmed the podcast? I brought my whole crew. They just sat like a few booths down. Okay, you guys gonna sit over here. Be over here.
Yep.
So I mean, you gotta do what you do. And that's kind of one of the things that entrepreneurship allows you, that flexibility, to be able to set your schedule, or to be able to do what you can. Or like me, I bring my kids to the shop if I have to, to my office and studio if I have to, all of them, all 4 of them. So yeah. So this leads me to my next question. Either one of you, what has been like your biggest lesson in entrepreneurship that you want to share?
Mine is definitely hire the right people. Okay. Because that was one of the mistakes I made early, was that like we had all these referrals coming in. So it was like, okay, just hire. We don't want people on a wait list that you haven't been able to access care. Then you end up hiring people who should have never been on your staff, who are not value aligned, who do not want to see the best in you, who may try to hurt the agency, things along those lines. So that is definitely the biggest lesson for me, because we went through a lot of pain and heartache over having people who may have pretended to be one person and turned out to be somebody else, and then really tried to harm the agency when they left. So.
What about you, Carlotta? What's been your biggest aha moment, or lesson, I should say, in entrepreneurship?
You know what? I think it's a dual lesson. Show myself grace. And in the fact that there's a lot of times that when you become an entrepreneur, for some reason, there's I don't know, I want to say a stigma, but there's a stereotype that you're supposed to hire your relative, your family member. And sometimes they're not fit. Sometimes you just can't hire your cousin, sister, brother, mother, or what, because they're related to you and they need a paycheck, because sometimes that's all they are there for, is the paycheck. And, that was really hard for me to swallow. Because, not my siblings, my mother's side of the family, nor my father's side have ever worked for me. But because I was in the family business prior, there was times I had to sit and have a heart-to-heart, even with my former, like, these people just not working. Like, they're not coming in. They can't remember to clock in. They're not doing the job that and they're really, and they will call you on payday. Like, was I getting my check today? No, payday's Monday. Yeah, but Monday's a holiday. Well, payday's, it's like you didn't read the half. So it's just like, and then when you have to have those conversations, it's like, why has no one else, it was a boy for me asking these questions. So I had to show myself grace by saying like, hey, they don't fit the role and they don't fit the trying to fill. They'll do a disservice to your organization, your company, your business, even if you're a non-for-profit. It just, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you have to be able to be like, you know what, I will get back with you. Or if a position comes up, because the HR side of me will say like, they're not a good fit. But the business family side of us says, oh, they need a job. They're going to come work for us. No, I do transportation. If they have hands and 2 feet, that's the beginning of what I need. They need so much more when you're working with children specifically. You need patience. You need a background check. You need a good driving record. You need an MVR report. So with all that being said, it's just like, it could be a task. It can really be a task. People think they're doing you a favor, and you're like, when you get a check, it's not a favor. You're getting compensated. It's employment.
Right.
So.
It's free money. Woohoo. Oh my goodness. So this leads me to my next and final. We talked about the good, we talked about the bad. And so I want you guys to fill in this part. The lessons, we talked about the lessons, right? Now, I want you to fill in the blank. The lessons were worth it because blank.
Our people are served.
Yes. What about you, Carlotta?
Your community is impacted, I would say.
I love it. See? And surround yourself. See, this is why I got this is my kind of community, y'all. For those of you that are listening, if you're trying to figure out your vibe attracts your tribe, these women are servant leaders. They are community focused, community oriented. These are the types of women that I have, that I sit at the table with, because the other kind of women, you just got to be careful. Who left me thinking, oh Lord, that last segment left me thinking, oh Lord, because you sit at a table with women that are talking about each other. That's not uplifting. You listen to the conversations that you have, and you will see how happy or how miserable your life is. Okay. Right. Be careful of who you surround yourself with. And if you need some pawn power, I got you. Just DM me, just shoot me a DM, or tell me what kind of video you want for the day. I will come and bring a smile to your face. Bring you some pawn power. And that is all. Any last minute words for you guys, for our audience?
I just wanted to say thank you. Grateful to be here. And if anyone knows any reporters or journalists that we can send this message out, that Medicaid is trying to shut down practices and fine practices with large amounts of money for records they didn't even audit, please send that information my way. Anything you can do. We are like begging for help in this situation, because
and Lawrence Elrod is on here listening in. He owns Elrod TV network. Also, Robin was just on a news podcasting, a news report, something like that. So Robin, if you still have their contact info, maybe you can send us the link for that. Pawn Power, yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, absolutely, you ladies are amazing. Great conversation. Yes, anybody with news outlet, we're going to be campaigning against this, because there is no way. People need to know that this is happening, for one, because I myself, because I'm not in the industry, I didn't know these types of things were happening, where they are trying to have less people of color community, because that's a majority that are on Medicaid is low income people that can't afford health insurance. And yes, so I don't know if you heard me, Sabrina, but my girlfriend Robin, she just sent me a clip of her on the news with talking about something else. So maybe she still has a contact for that news person that interviewed. They did like a Zoom, I think, on some topic. I have to take a look at it again, but she was just on a news interview that was on TV. And then also, like I said, Lawrence, he owns Elrod TV network station. And then you could hook up with Danielle, because she owns the billing company, medical billing, insurance billing. So yeah, lots of great stuff on here. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We will see you all next time. Again, same time, same place. We'll see you next Sunday at 4 p.m. And I'll keep showing up, because you guys keep showing up for me, so I will continue to show up for you.